الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, firstly thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again. Allah has granted us the tawfiq and the ability to perform our Maghrieb Salaah with Jama'ah. Alhamdulillah. We make dua Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our Salah with Jama'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us sincerity, istiqamah, ameen, rabbal alameen. Last week we have discussed the different narration mentioned in Masuyuti rahimahullah, explaining how the different of some of the Anbiya in one narration of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, explaining the difficulty they experienced at the time of death. And as Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentioned, that all the ulama they agree that they say that every person will experience some type of pain and difficulty at the time of death, except those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made easy for them. And he specifically highlights this chapter as I mentioned last week, where he spoke about, and he mentioned firstly, he brings about the narration of those people who will have the easiest death. And the easiest death are those the shuhada who fight in the path of Allah, and when they are hit with the final strike, for example with the sword, whatever it might be, which causes them to pass away. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in one hadith that الشهيد لا يجد ألم القتل إلا كما يجد أحدكم مسل قرصة. That Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that shaheed, the shuhada, those who fight in the path of Allah, what they experience of death is like when one of us get pinched. That is what they experience when they get hit. The final blow that now results in their death, that blow they feel, Rasul says, as if it's a slight pinch. This is how they feel and experience death. So the shuhada, says Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they undergo and experience the slightest and the lightest form of death. And then he brings also the narration Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, where he mentions that he has spoken about how the different Anbiya and what they mentioned regarding the difficulty experience of death. And now he mentions that the last person or the last thing who will pass away, or the one who will leave this dunya, or the one who will leave or lose his life at the end, is none other than Malakul Maut himself. And it's mentioned in the Hadith Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, he mentions that أن آخر من يموت ملك الموت, the last one who will die will be Malakul Maut. And it will be said to him that Mut, that O Malakul Maut, that die. And it is mentioned in this narration, فيصرخ عند ذلك صرخة لو سمعها أهل السماوات والأرض لماتوا فزعا. He mentioned that he will, when Malakul Maut experiences death, when Allah commands him to die and experience death, he will give such a loud scream, the narration mentioned, that if the people of the heavens and earth had to hear him, they would die out of fear of what they've heard, out of the scream of Malakul Maut when he experienced death. So this narration mentioned that he will experience the most difficult death, the Malakul Maut itself. And then Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentions, as we mentioned last week, some of the narration, we spoke about starting off with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when Rasulullah was busy leaving this dunya, we mentioned it continuously, he was dipping his fingers in cold water and wiping over his face. And he was continuously saying that inna lil mawti la sakarat, indeed, definitely the death itself, when a person experiences death, there's a pain and difficulty involved in it, says Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken and given the Anbiya such a difficult, some of them such a difficult death? Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentioned the first reason, تكميل فضائلهم ورفع درجاتهم, to elevate the status, not to elevate the status because of there's a deficiency in them, because of the sin they've committed or because of wrong that they've done, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to elevate them to the highest stage, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them these difficulties. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in a hadith that inna anna ashadda an-nas bala'an al-anbiya thumma al-amthal fal-amthal, that the people who suffers the most, the people who go through the most difficult test are the Anbiya of Allah, thumma al-amthal fal-amthal, then those who are like them and like them. And that's why Rasulullah mentioned those who Allah loves the most, Allah sometimes put them through the most difficult tests. As for me and you, to wipe away our sins because of our shortcomings, to elevate our status. But always there's benefit in it when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes his believer undergo this difficulty, or any difficulty for that matter. And then Imam Suyuti rahimahullah also mentioned the second reason is that أن يعرف الخلق مقدار ألم الموت, so that we as the creation of Allah can understand the seriousness of this death and the pains of death, so that we don't think of it as something light. And he mentioned many times we would stand, a person will experience someone dying or leaving this dunya. He says the pains of death is something batin, it's something internal. The one standing by the bedside, he cannot see how much pain you're going through, or how easy is the experience of that person's death. It is something that person who's busy leaving this dunya, he is experiencing. And many times he says, Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentioned, he says, because we stand at the side of the bed and we see that the person is laying calm, there's no harakah, there's no movement, there's no uneasiness, and then we perceive that death is something easy. He says, as a believer, we should never take it for granted in telling ourselves that, that death is something easy that will quickly overcome. Rather, we should continuously ask Allah. That's why Rasulullah instructs us to remind us to think about death frequently, so that we can remember these conditions and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy for us. And then Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, he mentions two ways in how a person can be end of with it, how a person can make easy his difficulty at the time of death. One of it he mentioned is siwak, that making miswak. And it takes this from the narration of Rasulullah Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was experiencing pains of death in his last moments. He requested, he saw the miswak in one of the pockets of one of the Sahaba radiallahu anha, and he pointed and indicated to his beloved wife Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha that she must use the miswak and brush his teeth with it. And that's why Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha would always be proud of the fact that before Rasulullah passed away, her saliva mixed with the saliva of Rasulullah, because he softened the miswak, he softened the siwak in order to clean and brush the teeth of Rasulullah. So Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentioned that this is a means of making easy for the person experiencing death. And also another narration mentioned reading Surah Yasin, and the one going through those last moments of his life, reading Surah Yasin is also a means of easing and granting ease for the person. And he also mentioned that while we have the strength and the yawf, we must increase in good deeds. We must increase in good deeds. We must always strive to do more righteous deeds and more righteous deeds. And when a person, that righteous deeds he mentioned, that might be a reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make easy for the person his death. And also those who are present, Imam Suyuti rahimahullah mentioned, if it was a person of righteousness and piety, those who are present, we should remind the person to comfort him, to bring some peace and tranquility to his heart, is we should remind him of the good that he used to do, so he can tell him that though inshallah you used to be a very good person and Allah's reward is waiting for you. Allah is going to reward you greatly for the good that you have done. By doing this, and also obviously by reading Tahleel and continuously saying La ilaha illallah quietly in the ears of this person busy dying, this is all a means of death being easy, being made easy for the person. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a tawfiq and understanding. Wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillah.